Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're diving into one of the most incredibly cinematic stories in Southeast Asian history. We are going to explore exactly how one of Myanmar's greatest empires was forged out of absolute fiery chaos. We're tracking the historical rise of a truly legendary royal leader, Tabinshwehti. This is a king who didn't just casually inherit a throne. He completely reimagined an entire region.
Now, to really grasp the sheer magnitude of his achievements, you've got to understand the world he was born into. This region was fractured. Decades of brutal conflict, most notably the devastating 40 Years' War between Ava and Hanthawadi, had left the lands deeply, deeply divided. Powerful warlords were just completely ignoring central authority, and the whole landscape was this chaotic patchwork of rival kingdoms. It was an era of constant instability. So the big question we're answering today is, how in the world did a young boy taking the throne at just 14 years old managed to unite a nation that was tearing itself apart?
Well, according to the historical texts, his destiny was kind of written from day one. He was born in 1516 in the rising kingdom of Taungoo, and his birth was supposedly accompanied by these wild mythic omens. His father, King Myanmar, actually noticed the newborn had a single, golden, shining hair on his head. Because of that, he named him Tabinshwehti, which roughly translates to single, golden umbrella. On top of that, Thai historical records even referred to him as the king with the black tongue because he had these distinct dark birthmarks right on his tongue. So literally from the very beginning, he was viewed as someone entirely set apart by fate.
So here is our roadmap for today. 1. The 14-year-old young king. 2. Ear-piercing in enemy territory. 3. Stratagem and Hanthawadi War. 4. The historic Nang Yo battle. And 5. Emperor of Second Myanmar Empire.
Starting with Part 1, the 14-year-old young king, ascension amidst chaos. Back in 1530, Tabinshwehti's father, King Myanmar, fell suddenly ill and passed away at the age of 72. There was absolutely no time for a smooth, prolonged transition of power here. That very night, right at the stroke of midnight, a 14-year-old Tabinshwehti was rushed to the Taungoo throne. And keep in mind, the kingdom was entirely surrounded by potential enemies who were practically drooling at the chance to take advantage of a newly crowned boy king.
But here's where he immediately showcases this profound sense of royal leadership. Instead of panicking, he locks down his base. He generously rewarded his loyal retainers and childhood friends, making sure to promote people based on actual trust and merit. Crucially, he elevated his close childhood companion, Kyathin Naurahata, and even married his sister to him. He was building this impenetrable inner circle. And, totally defying standard royal traditions, he uniquely chose not to appoint a chief queen right away. He kept his focus 100% on statecraft and survival.
Moving to Part 2, ear-piercing in enemy territory, audacity at Shwemata Pagoda. Just 3 years later, he's 17, and it's time for his royal ear-piercing and hair-knotting ceremony. This is a massive, vital rite of passage, but Tabinshwehti doesn't want to do this safely at home. No, he insists on holding it at the Shwemata Pagoda in Bago. The catch here? Bago was the capital of the rival Hanthawadi kingdom. It was directly under the control of his main enemy. Absolute audacity.
To actually pull this off, he needed a personal escort of warriors who felt absolutely zero fear. So he institutes this brutal test. Candidates literally had a needle driven under their thumbnails and struck with a hammer. Anyone who even flinched was immediately disqualified. Now, one of his loyal servants, Balaritan, couldn't handle it. He failed the pain test. Overcome with just immense shame for losing his place at the king's side, Balaritan actually took his own life right there on the spot by cutting his belly open. Tabinshwehti's reaction was just chillingly pragmatic. He simply stated, "My servant Balaritan is reckless, but lacks true courage." He needed men with unbreakable resolve.
Through that grueling, gruesome selection process, he found exactly 500 fearless, pain-defying elite warriors. With this specific elite guard and his trusted commander Kyathin Naurahata, he marches right into enemy territory. While the priests are casually performing the ceremony, his 500 warriors are guarding the pagoda. And when the furious enemy Mon army inevitably surrounds them, Tabinshwehti himself mounts his horse and alongside his fiercely loyal guard violently smashes right through the enemy lines. They escape back to Taungoo totally unharmed. It was an unbelievable psychological victory.
Let's look at Part 3, Stratagem and the Hanthawadi War, psychological warfare against King Takayupi. Having thoroughly proved his nerve, Tabinshwehti sets his sights on actually conquering that Hanthawadi kingdom, which was ruled by King Takayupi.
But this was no easy task at all. The enemy had something Taungoo did not, a serious contingent of Portuguese mercenaries armed with advanced firearms and cannons.
Tracing the timeline of this conflict, you really see the struggle. In 1534, the first siege of the capital Bago flat-out fails against strong defenses. In 1535, a second attempt is repelled, and they take heavy casualties from those Portuguese cannons. So realizing brute force just wasn't working, Tabinshwehti shifts his tactics in 1536. He sweeps through the surrounding western towns to cut off the capital. But getting that ultimate victory in 1538, that required something way sharper than swords.
And this is a brilliant illustration of his genius as a royal leader. He engaged in masterclass psychological warfare. When King Takayutbi sent envoys to negotiate, Tabinshwehti lavished 2 specific enemy generals with secret gifts, totally ignoring the rest. Then, he sends a forged letter addressed to those 2 generals, promising them territories for their quote-unquote help, and he intentionally allows this letter to be intercepted by the enemy king. King Takayutbi, consumed by utter paranoia, immediately executes his own 2 best generals. With his military leadership gutted from the inside, the king flees, and Tabinshwehti captures the capital of Bago without spilling a single drop of blood. Pure genius.
Which brings us to Part 4, the historic Naungyo Battle, a legendary fight against all odds. The enemy king is on the run, fleeing toward Pai with this massive army trailing him. Tabinshwehti immediately dispatches his trusted brother-in-law, Khiatan Naurata, to pursue the fleeing Mon king. And this pursuit leads us to what is arguably one of the most famous military encounters in all of Southeast Asian history, the climax at Naungyo Creek.
When Khiatan Naurata arrived at the creek, his scouts came back with some pretty terrifying news. The Taungoo's vanguard had about 10,000 soldiers, 500 horses, and 50 elephants. But waiting for them across the creek was the Hanthawadi rearguard, which was roughly 8 times larger, an 8-to-1 disadvantage. The numerical difference was absolutely staggering. Naturally, his officers are terrified. They strongly advise just waiting for Tabinshwehti's main army to catch up. So here is the crucial point, how a truly great leader inspires men facing almost certain death. Khiatan Naurata orders his men to cross the creek on rafts. And once the entire army is on the other side, he issues this legendary command. He orders every single raft to be destroyed. He turns to his men and says, "If we don't destroy the rafts, we'll think of retreating. Destroy them to fight to the death." With the enemy directly in front of them and deep water right behind them, the Taungoo soldiers fought with just suicidal ferocity, completely shattering that massive enemy force.
When Tabinshwehti finally arrived the next day and saw this unbelievable victory, you know what he did? He didn't feel threatened by his general's massive success. Instead, he vastly rewarded him. He bestowed upon Khiatan Naurata the supreme royal title of Bayanang, which translates to the king's elder brother. This right here perfectly showcases Tabinshwehti's incredible meritocracy leadership, empowering, recognizing, and richly rewarding the very talent that was helping him build his empire.
On to Part 5, Emperor of the Second Myanmar Empire, unifying a divided land. With the Hanthawadi kingdom fully secured, Tabinshwehti was no longer just a king anymore, he was stepping up as an emperor. But, the fractured land was not entirely pacified just yet. He still had to face down these massive coalitions, including the Kingdom of Phie and a huge alliance of Shan states coming down from the north.
And the sheer scale of these later campaigns is just breathtaking. In the clash at Phie, we are talking about armies facing off with over 160,000 soldiers on each side. They were utilizing hundreds of war elephants and thousands upon thousands of horses. Honestly, the sheer logistical mastery required to feed, move, and command an army of that size in the 16th century is astounding to even think about. Yet through strategic brilliance and the combined efforts of his land and naval forces, Tabinshwehti continuously outmaneuvered and crushed these massive coalitions. But here really is what you should take away from this explainer today. Tabinshwehti's true greatness wasn't just found in conquering. It was in how he governed. After defeating the Mon people of Hanthawadi, he didn't enslave or humiliate them. Instead, he reinstated former Mon officials and returned all their wealth. He personally adopted the traditional Mon haircut. He was even crowned using both Mon and Myanmar royal regalia side by side. He went as far as appointing a Mon monk as the supreme patriarch of the religion. It was just a brilliant masterclass in cultural integration and inclusive leadership.
He didn't just want to rule over a divided people, he wanted to forge a singular, unified identity. By treating the conquered as equals, he secured their long-term loyalty and built the rock-solid foundation of the Second Burmese Empire. It leaves us with a really fascinating final thought to chew on. How would history have changed if he hadn't embraced both Mon and Myanmar cultures so equally? Would his empire have crumbled just as quickly as it was built? It's a powerful reminder that while military might can absolutely win you a war, only empathy and inclusive leadership can truly build an empire. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I hope you found this historical rise as fascinating as I do.